Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about feel-good productivity.
Ooh, I like that title.
Yeah, it's based on a book called Feel Good Productivity by Ali Abdaal.
Okay.
And he's, this doctor turned productivity expert,
Yeah.
YouTuber, has courses and everything. And he basically challenges the notion that success has to require, suffering and struggle.
Right, like no pain, no gain.
Yeah, and he basically says, if you actually prioritize well-being, you unlock more energy, more motivation, and ultimately, greater productivity.
That's interesting because I know even Cal Newport, who's kind of like, king productivity.
Right, deep work.
Yeah, he endorses Abdal's approach. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to dig into that more. What's the basis of the science behind this?
Well, so he starts by highlighting an experiment called the candle problem.
Okay.
And it goes like this. Imagine you're given a candle, a box of matches, and some tacks, and your goal is to attach the candle to a corkboard on the wall so that the wax doesn't drip onto the table below.
I feel like I've heard this before. It's like a classic problem-solving experiment.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really interesting is a psychologist named Alice Eisen used this experiment to study the impact of mood on creativity.
Okay.
So one group in the experiment was given a small gift before they were, presented with this candle problem, just a little bag of candy.
Oh, well, so simple.
Yeah, and guess what? That group was significantly more likely to solve the problem.
Interesting. So like just that little mood booster of getting a gift or feeling appreciated.
Yeah, just a little boost of happiness
Uh-huh.
helped them be better problem solvers.
Interesting. So positive emotions are almost like fuel for creative thinking.
Yeah, it's not just a byproduct of success. It
Mm.
actually changes how we think and behave.
Right.
And Abdal connects this to the work of Barbara Fredrickson, who developed the broaden and build theory of positive emotions.
Okay, I'm familiar with her work, but refresh my memory. How does that tie into all this?
So she says that positive emotions do two key things. First, they broaden our thinking, kind of like upgrading our mental bandwidth.
Okay, so like more receptive to new ideas and solutions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then secondly, over time, these positive emotions help us build valuable resources like resilience, creativity, problem-solving skills, stronger social connections, even better physical health.
Wait, are you saying that just feeling good can actually improve our physical health?
Well, that's what the research suggests.
It's fascinating how all these things are interconnected.
Yeah, and it's this cyclical process. These built-up resources then make it easier to experience even more positive emotions.
Right, so it's like an upward spiral.
Exactly. An upward spiral of well-being and achievement.
Okay, I'm starting to get the feel-good part, but how does this translate into actual productivity? It's not just about being happy while we're, procrastinating.
Well, Abdal argues that feel-good productivity works because those positive emotions, they act like fuel. They boost our energy levels. Think about, the hormones associated with happiness, endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin.
Like all the feel-good chemicals?
Yeah, they increase motivation-focused drive. It's like tapping into an inner source of energy rather than relying on willpower alone.
I can see how that would be more sustainable in the long run.
Right. And then not only that, those positive emotions also help counteract stress.
Okay.
So Fredrickson has this thing called the undoing hypothesis, which suggests that positive emotions can actually reverse the physiological damage caused by stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol.
Oh, wow. So it's like a built-in reset button.
Yeah, helping us stay resilient and focused even when things get tough.
That makes a lot of sense because when we're stressed, we tend to make poor decisions and we're not as productive.
Right. And there's actually a large-scale study, analyzed data from over 275,000 people and found that happiness isn't just a result of success, it often precedes it.
Interesting. So happy people are more likely to be successful.
Yeah, it suggests that prioritizing well-being isn't selfish. It's actually strategic.
Okay.
It's not about grinding away until you're miserable and then maybe you'll be successful.
Right.
It's about finding ways to enjoy the journey, which in turn fuels your success.
It's like a more holistic approach to achievement.
And to make this more practical, Abdal offers a framework in his book. He divides it into 3 sections.
Okay.
Gaining energy,
Mm-hmm.
removing roadblocks, and maintaining momentum.
Okay, so it's like a roadmap for more sustainable and fulfilling way of working and living.
Exactly. And before we dive into that framework, I'm curious about his story. How did he even come to these ideas?
Yeah, what's his background?
So he was actually a junior doctor, and he was totally burned out from the demanding workload and the constant pressure.
I can imagine that's a really high-stress job.
Yeah, and that's when he began searching for a way to find fulfillment and success without sacrificing his well-being, and that's what led him to these principles of feel-good productivity.
That's really inspiring. I mean, he was basically his own guinea pig, trying out different approaches and finding what worked.
Yeah, and his personal experience kind of gives his work more credibility.
Definitely. He's
Yep.
not just talking about theory, he's actually lived it.
Right. So are you ready to dig into his framework?
Yeah, let's do it. Where do we start?
Well, let's start with part one, gaining energy.
Okay.
ABDAAL identifies 3 key areas that can actually boost our productivity. Play power and people.
Play power in people.
Okay, I'm intrigued. That sounds a lot more fun than my usual to-do list.
Yeah, so let's start with play. What do you think that means?
Well, I hope it means I can finally install that slide in my home office.
Well, that's one way to inject some playfulness into your work,
Yeah.
but maybe not the most practical.
Okay.
So ABDAAL is talking about activities that bring us pure joy, the things we do simply for the love of it, even if no one was watching. It's about tapping into that childlike sense of curiosity and wonder.
So like finding ways to make work feel less like work? Exactly. It could be something as simple as putting on music while you're tackling a tough task or taking breaks to do something you genuinely enjoy.
I like that, because we're not machines. We're humans, and we thrive when we have a sense of playfulness and enjoyment in our lives.
And when we incorporate that play into our work, we can actually unlock more creativity and focus.
That reminds me of when I'm working on a project I'm truly passionate about,
Yeah.
I get so absorbed in it that the hours just fly by. It doesn't even feel like work.
Exactly. It's like entering that state of flow.
Yes.
And that's the kind of energy ABDAAL is talking about. When we engage in activities we find intrinsically rewarding, our energy levels just soar.
And we're able to tap into a level of focus and creativity that wouldn't be possible if we were just forcing ourselves to grind through it.
Exactly. All right, so play check. Next up, power. What do you think that's all about?
Power.
Hmm.
Well, I'm picturing myself in a power suit, channeling my inner CEO.
Well, a power suit can definitely boost confidence,
Look,
but
all right.
ABDAAL's definition of power goes a bit deeper. It's about that feeling of being in control of our own lives, having agency and autonomy over our decisions and actions, feeling capable and competent.
So like knowing we have the skills and resources to achieve what we set out to do.
Exactly. It's about feeling empowered, not powerless when faced with challenges.
I like that, because feeling powerless can be really draining.
And the sense of power can come from various sources. It might be mastering a new skill set and clear boundaries, or even just taking ownership of our schedule and prioritizing what truly matters to us.
Right. It's about being proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, moving from reactive mode to proactive mode, from feeling at the mercy of circumstances to feeling like we can actually shape them.
Makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've covered play and power. What about people? Where do they fit into all of this?
Well, I know you're probably thinking networking, building your LinkedIn empire.
Hey, I'm always up for expanding my network.
But ABDAAL actually emphasizes the importance of genuine connection, both with ourselves and with others. It's about fostering a sense of belonging and community, surrounding ourselves with people who support and inspire us.
I can see how that would be energizing.
Yeah. It makes me think about those times when I've collaborated with a team of people who are all passionate about the same project.
Right. The energy is just infectious.
Yeah. And we achieve so much more together than we ever could alone.
Exactly. We're social creatures.
Mhm.
We're wired for connection. And when we feel that sense of belonging, our well-being flourishes, and we're more likely to thrive in all areas of our lives, including our work.
And it's not just about being around any people, it's about being around the right people, the ones who lift us up and bring out the best in us.
That's so important.
Yeah.
And also, cultivating a healthy relationship with ourselves.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Practicing self-compassion,
Mm.
celebrating our wins,
Mhm.
being kind to ourselves when we stumble.
Yeah. It's easy to forget that in the hustle and bustle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I appreciate about ABDAAL's framework. It reminds us that true productivity isn't about pushing ourselves to the brink of burnout.
Mm-hmm.
It's about nurturing our well-being. Holistically, recognizing that play, power, and people are essential ingredients for a fulfilling and productive life.
So it's not about becoming a productivity machine, it's about being a well-rounded human who also happens to be incredibly productive.
I love that.
Right? It's a much more sustainable and enjoyable approach.
So now that we've explored those 3 pillars of gaining energy, what's next?
Well, next we're going to tackle those pesky obstacles that can get in the way of our feel-good productivity flow.
Hey, time to face the roadblocks. Let's do it.
Okay.
So ready to dive into those roadblocks?
Yeah, I'm ready to tackle those obstacles.
All right, so this is where the next part of ABDAAL's framework comes in, removing roadblocks.
Okay.
And he basically says that procrastination isn't just about laziness, or a lack of willpower,
Right.
it's often a symptom of underlying blocking factors.
Blocking factors. Okay, that sounds a bit ominous. What kind of things are we talking about here?
Yeah, so these could be anything, from fear of failure or perfectionism
Mm-hmm.
to a lack of clarity on our goals,
Yeah.
feeling overwhelmed by a task.
Yeah.
Sometimes we procrastinate because we simply don't have the skills or resources we need to get started.
So it's not just about forcing ourselves to power through.
Right.
It's actually taking the time to understand why we're hitting those roadblocks in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once we identify those blocking factors, we can start to address them strategically.
Okay.
Maybe it's breaking down a large task into smaller, more manageable chunks,
Mm.
seeking out support from others,
Yeah.
or reframing our perspective on the challenge.
So it's about being kind to ourselves and acknowledging that sometimes those roadblocks are actually signals
Mm,
that we need to adjust our approach.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're not superhuman,
Right.
and that it's okay to need help or to adjust our expectations. And this leads perfectly into the final part of ABDAAL's framework, maintaining momentum.
Okay. So we've fueled our energy. We've removed the roadblocks.
Right.
Now, how do we keep this positive momentum going without hitting that dreaded burnout wall?
Yeah. That's the key, isn't it? So this is where those recharge modes come in.
Recharge modes. Okay, tell me more.
So ABDAAL emphasizes the importance of actively replenishing our energy to avoid burnout
Okay.
and stay on track long term.
So does this mean I need to schedule like mandatory spa days or something?
I mean, spa days can definitely be rejuvenating,
True.
but he's talking about a broader approach. He identifies 3 specific recharge modes:
Okay.
preserving, replenishing, and aligning.
Okay, let's break those down. Preserving. Does this mean I need to build a bunker and stockpile snacks?
Well, a well-stocked snack drawer never hurts.
Right.
But preserving is about protecting our energy in a more strategic way.
Okay.
It's about setting boundaries, saying no to things that drain us, and prioritizing rest and recovery.
So it's kind of like making sure our phone doesn't run out of battery.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
We can't run on empty all the time.
Right.
We need to recharge our batteries to maintain our well-being and avoid burnout.
That's definitely something I need to work on. I have a tendency to say yes to everything.
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, and then I just end up feeling stretched thin and depleted.
Right. It's a common struggle.
But
But learning to say no is a powerful act of self-care. It allows us to show up fully for the things that truly matter.
okay, so we've preserved our energy. How do we replenish it? Are we talking beach naps?
Beach naps are awesome.
They are.
But replenishing goes beyond simple relaxation.
Okay.
It's about actively engaging in activities that nourish our mind, body, and soul.
Okay.
Things like exercise, spending time in nature, pursuing creative hobbies,
Mm-hmm.
practicing mindfulness, or connecting with loved ones.
So it's about finding what truly recharges your batteries and making it a priority.
Exactly. It's like hitting the reset button and refilling our tanks with things that make us feel alive and inspired.
I like that. And then finally, there's aligning. What's that all about?
Aligning is all about making sure our actions are in sync with our values and goals.
Okay.
It's about having that sense of purpose and meaning that comes from doing work that feels truly aligned with who we are and what we believe in.
So it's like that feeling of hell yes.
Yeah, exactly.
When you know you're on the right path and doing work that feels meaningful, like Abdal himself, he transitioned from a career that was draining him to one that brings him joy and allows him to help others.
That's a perfect example of alignment and action.
Yeah.
And when our work is aligned with our values, we naturally feel more energized and engaged.
Yeah.
It's like tapping into an endless well of motivation.
So these 3 recharge modes, preserving, replenishing, and aligning,
Yeah,
they're the keys to maintaining that feel-good productivity momentum and preventing burnout.
precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really powerful about ABDAAL's framework is that it's not about adding more to our to-do lists.
Mm.
It's about making subtle shifts in how we approach our work and our lives, prioritizing our well-being as the foundation for sustainable success.
So feel-good productivity isn't a quick fix or a magic formula. It's a mindset shift that requires us to be more intentional about how we spend our time and energy.
Definitely.
It's about recognizing that prioritizing our well-being isn't selfish.
Right.
It's actually the key to unlocking our full potential.
It's about working smarter, not harder, and finding a way to thrive in all areas of our lives.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the science behind positive emotions to practical strategies for incorporating feel-good productivity into our daily lives.
And I hope our listeners feel inspired to experiment with some of these ideas
Yeah,
and discover what works best for them.
absolutely. So as we wrap up, we'd love to leave you with this question. What's one small step you can take today to bring more joy and energy into your work or a challenging task?
Maybe it's putting on your favorite music,
Yeah.
scheduling a walk in nature, or simply taking a few moments to appreciate all the good in your life.
Remember, true productivity isn't about sacrificing your well-being.
Mm-hmm.
It's about finding a way to thrive while achieving your goals.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time for another insightful exploration.
Okay, so we've talked about gaining energy and removing roadblocks.
Yeah.
But how do we maintain that feel-good productivity without burning out?
Yeah, that's the big question. How do we make this sustainable?
Right, so that's where the final part of ABDAAL's framework comes in, maintaining momentum. And this is all about those recharge modes.
Recharge modes. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, right. So he emphasizes the importance of actively replenishing our energy to avoid burnout and, stay on track long term.
Okay, so what are these recharge modes? Does this involve, scheduling mandatory vacations or something?
Well, vacations are definitely important for recharging,
True.
but he's talking about a broader approach. He identifies 3 specific recharge modes:
Okay.
preserving, replenishing, and aligning.
Okay, let's unpack those. Starting with preserving. What does that even mean?
So preserving is all about protecting our energy.
Okay.
It's about setting boundaries, saying no to things that drain us, and prioritizing rest and recovery.
So it's kind of like making sure our phone doesn't run out of battery.
Exactly.
All right.
We can't operate on empty all the time. We need to recharge our batteries to maintain our well-being and prevent burnout.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've preserved our energy now. How do we replenish it?
So replenishing is about actively engaging in activities that nourish our mind, body, and soul.
Okay.
Things like exercise, spending time in nature, pursuing creative hobbies, practicing mindfulness, or connecting with loved ones.
It's about finding what truly recharges you and making it a priority.
Exactly. It's like hitting that reset button and refilling our tanks with things that make us feel alive and inspired.
I like that. And finally, there's aligning. What does that entail?
So aligning is all about making sure that our actions are in sync with our values and our goals.
Yeah.
It's about having that sense of purpose and meaning that comes from doing work that feels truly aligned with who we are and what we believe in.
It's like that feeling of, hell yes, when you know you're on the right path.
Exactly.
And doing work that feels meaningful.
And when our work is aligned with our values, we naturally feel more energized and engaged. It's like tapping into an endless well of motivation.
So these 3 recharge modes, preserving, replenishing, and aligning, they're the keys to maintaining that feel-good productivity momentum and preventing burnout.
Absolutely. And what's so great about ABDAAL's framework is that it's not about adding more to our already overflowing to-do lists.
Right.
It's about shifting our mindset and how we approach our work and our lives. It's about prioritizing well-being as the foundation for sustainable success.
Feel-good productivity. It's not a quick fix or a magic bullet.
Ooh.
It's a journey of self-discovery and intentional living.
It's about working smarter, not harder,
Yeah.
and finding a way to thrive in all areas of our lives.
Well, this has been such an inspiring deep dive into feel-good productivity. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the science of positive emotions to practical strategies for incorporating ABDAAL's framework into our lives.
And I hope our listeners feel empowered to take action.
Yes. So as we wrap up, what's one small step our listeners can take today to bring more joy and energy into their work?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Or a challenging task?
Maybe it's putting on some music that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Or taking a break to step outside and connect with nature.
Remember, true productivity is not about sacrificing your well-being.
Absolutely.
It's about finding that sweet spot where you can thrive, both personally and professionally.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into feel-good productivity.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time for another insightful exploration